Okay, so welcome back to YouTube videos, this series on Pinan katas. Today we'll be looking at Pinan Yondan, fourth kata. Here to help me again, Sensei Kerry. Later on, there'll be Simon Sheridan helping us. So yeah, let's crack on and see where it takes us. Wish. Pinan Yondan. Oi! Oi! Okay, so the stance that you need to take is Nekawash stance, Mahamni Nekawash. Yeah, same as you use for Stoke. Yeah, remember to pull this hip in because it puts your weight into it, not back here, but into it, so as it's an attack. Yeah, and attack, pulling this in. So make sure this hip is in. Puts a different aspect onto this arm, this uke. Pulling it down on your hip. One other item to mention while we're doing the first move is this movement, the body shift. It needs to be quick. So after the first uke and shito, then make sure that move is quick, not slow, not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but straight away and quickly into the attack. Okay, so first of all, we're going to look at your hand positions and your thumb positions for the first two techniques. Main thing is not to have your fingers open, right? If you hit this one, that knuckle will hit that one will hit that one will hit that. So try and keep your fingers together, not spread open. Not doing any Star Trek signs. So try and keep your fingers together. Next thing is thumb positions. Very subtle, but it is important. When it goes out, your thumb needs to be at the side. When it's up in the air, your thumb tucked up. Main one is if you pull it to the side, if you put your hand on your wrist and then pull your thumb to the side, you can feel your wrist. It feels like all the bones are sort of realigning themselves. Okay, so this will be a lot stronger for the uke. This one not hanging down because it looks like you're going to scratch your nose. So make sure it's up out the way so as you've got a good peripheral vision. Yeah, and also this will be a strike. So when you strike, you actually pull your thumb back in line for the strike. Up and down, up and down. If you look at any medieval or sword techniques, they usually start with their sword up and it comes down. So the same with this, it comes down. So bringing your arm up, it's actually to get the momentum to come crashing down. So those are the two things we're going to look at first of all. Keep your fingers together, thumb pulled back, thumb pulled up, then swap them over when you go to the other side. When you strike, realign your thumb outwards. Okay. So we'll be looking at the next few moves. So from here, we'll be pulling the arms in and going through and up and in. So, conventional is that you do juryuki for the kick. If you've had somebody really kick you with venom, then your arms are going to take it. Not really a big fan of juryuki, but if you want to go that direction, it's fine with me, not a problem at all. But we're going to look at this in a different way. Same way that we use it on our pair work. So, first move, sensei keri would be punching here to my center. So I'll be doing moving my body out the way. Taisubaki. Here. Also covering as I'm pulling back. Then when I'm going through, suri and punch through and keep this elbow forward, moving them out the way. So once more, punches coming here, move, slide, punch through, and up. So if I do it without sensei keri, yeah, 1, 2, 3. If you want to take the option of a gaku while you're in there, when you're partnering off, fine. And then coming up. So I'm moving off center, covering, sliding through, and punch through. Good. Mahamni nekawash. Punch again if you want. Keep this elbow going forward, moving them away. Next part we'll be looking at is here, yoko maigere. So you must try and keep your knees soft, not locked out. If you're locked out, you become very top heavy. So bend the knees, soft, yeah. Cover, yoko maigere, and MP. This is the target. If you haven't got a partner, this is your target. Yeah, and coming up. And again, uki, keri. Try and keep your hips square. You might see that I have to turn a little bit. And some other people who are training of a certain age might have to do the same. All right, so, but try and make it yoko maigere. Yeah? Yoko maigere. And MP. So if we do that with a partner, you'll see where we're what we're trying to achieve. Osh, sensei keri. So, gaku. And if you can accommodate the other side, cover, but they have to be done at the same time. And punch. And away. So make sure you're collecting them, whether it's the body, their arm. Make sure you're collecting them. 1. Either arm, body, head, chudan. But make sure that you're managing them. So the next combination that we're looking at is so from the epi, cover, bring the hand up, in for the other uki. Make sure the elbow's in. It's no good here. You need it into your body with your weight behind it. And if you can, try and take your Junzuki stance here, because that makes it a hell of a lot easier and quicker to go into your maigere. After all, this will be a combination. Yeah. So turn, maigere, cover, and kakushiash, back cat stance for the Urakan. So I'll be taking you through that with a partner. So first of all, cover, elbows in, foot's out, ready for the maigiri. As I come in, the punch is coming, reach, and jurakan. Cover, maigiri, force your hip in. When you do the kakushiash, try and make sure that you turn your foot in slightly, bring your hip in, opposite, not just square, opposite. Your knee will then point into your front knee for a much stronger stance. And your hip has gone in for this uki, this suri. And Urakan. Make sure your arm's straight out for the Urakan. Yeah, we do in the association we belong to for Pinanyondan. We to support it we do 2 Nihon committees, 10 and 11, and you'll find this technique within it. So this makes more sense, especially when you're doing the uki instead of here. Yeah, dropping in. Wash. Okay, so the next part we're looking at is from Urakan to turning, maigiri, jun, sonobaid. Okay, so we'll be looking at the kaisets for that. So, last week, some of us were very fortunate to spend a week training at the Wado Academy winter course. It was a great honour to train with Otsuka III, where he was teaching internals. So, when you come to turn, try not to put your foot across and turn, because you'll be guessing where to put the foot. If you can use this compression, you'll not only turn quicker, you'll go in exactly the right place. So once more, you're compressing, you're going to turn. And the same when you come here. Not just put your foot across, but try and use your hip and your momentum to turn. You'll end up with, your result will be a faster, positive turn. Not, well, have I put my foot in the right place? No, I'm too wide. Yeah, have I put my correct foot? No, it's too short. So try and use this momentum by using and you'll be exactly in the right stance. Very difficult to do. And after a week's training, trying to do this, I really ached in areas that I didn't realise I'd got. So try and use them. I think we've touched on them before, but made it positive. Okay, so we've got to here with sonobaid. Yeah, punches come in here. Yeah. So this is the part that we'll be demonstrating. Whoosh. Okay. Whoosh. Yes, sir. So, we've done the Hizugeri, and they're coming down, and the Kakayuke, and the Kakayuke. But you shouldn't forget Taisho as well, here. Yeah, and when you're doing the Kakayuke, yeah, after training, we'd obviously need some something to quench the thirst. So while we're quenching our thirsts, we usually had some good talks, and there was one good talk that I had with Rob, our friend up north, right, Rob Curry. So what he was talking about, he also does Iaido. So he called this the mountain, the valley, and the stars. So you don't watch the stars. You look for the mountain, but you actually use the valley. So try and remember mountain, valley, stars. So don't watch the fist. Don't watch the valley, but watch the motion in the mountain. I thought that was quite an interesting story. Thank you, Rob. So similar from one side to the other. What you shouldn't forget is Taisho. So to practice Taisho, you need to do an exercise that my sensei Toru Takamizawa showed us in temple. So if we can use Simon, please. So you start off with the Kakayuke. 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 Now to use Taisho. Simon's going to push through and punch Chu down. So, and you can use your raken. So once more. So Kakayuke, then Taisho. And away. Yeah, 1, 2. And then you can practice the other side. Kakayuke. With Taisho. So using Kakayuke and Taisho. Don't forget Taisho as well. And when you're practicing, if you can, very difficult when you're doing it Gordon Ash, but try and have it same height as your shoulder. Elbow. Let me if you move away. Same as your fighting stance, just the hands. Same as Seishan, fighting stance. Whoosh. So, Pinan Yondan. I'm sure you've been asked while you've been training, what's your favourite kata? And from a very early stage, I said Pinan Yondan. Not sure why, but it's always Pinan Yondan. I think it's because there's fast, dynamic moves within it. Yeah, lots of things that we haven't possibly covered before. So I think that's one reason. The other reason is there's lots of similarities with Kushanku. There seems to be quite a lot of bits and pieces that's been taken out of Kushanku and into Pinan Yondan. So, yeah, I enjoy Pinan Yondan. Fast turns, fluid movements, yeah, fast responses. So, yeah, I enjoy playing on Yondon.
So looking at the key points for this kata. First big takeaway is the use of open hands. Similar technique to Shodan, but now with open hands. Most people can make a fist, even if they're not trained. They've seen enough films and punch-ups in the pub to be able to make a fist. And some people who might even work out there's different striking surfaces on a fist. But it takes a lot of practice and a lot of knowledge to start using open hand techniques. And there are multiple striking surfaces on the hand, on the open hand. From Naihanchi, Heishu, the back of the hand, powerful strike. Taisho, Shuto, Seiyuto, using the pisiform bone. Haito. So these are skilled and more advanced uses of the hand. And because now this is the fourth of the series, presumably you will have a couple of years of training in. So you'll have reached the skill level to be able to use these various striking surfaces rather than just making a fist. So I think a big change with this kata, introducing more advanced concepts. The second point, what we'll do is we'll discuss these now, and then we'll do some little practical demonstrations. But this idea of one technique, 1,000 applications. So when we do the little demonstration video, we use the start of the kata and we'll interpret it a couple of three different ways, how you could use the same move in different contexts. And that might sort of help you understand the kata a bit better and for the kata to become much more practical and useful to you. Because rather than it just being striking, you can get into sort of grappling and jiu-jitsu type techniques. The third concept to take away from this is doji ni, two together. There are techniques within this where the defensive technique and the striking technique are simultaneous. One of my favourite martial arts films, Kurohobi, the two main characters in there, one of them is a Goju-Ryu 7th Dan Yagi Sensei. And in a video talking about partner work, his philosophy was 1 and 2 is the end of you. It's too slow. If you come up against a skilled striker, a boxer, they talk about punches in bunches. So if you're relying on a block and then a counter punch, you're probably going to hit multiple times. So the idea of being able to meet a technique and strike at the same time, that sort of nullifies any sort of counter punches they might be throwing towards you. So we'll have a little look and demonstrate some of the principles of doji ni, two together. And again, we touched on this in the last video of Sandan, where some of these apparently sort of karate style striking techniques can actually be grappling techniques, tagumi. So we'll demonstrate some of those as well, to just give you a little bit more insight into what, to start with, doesn't look particularly promising as a wrestling technique or a grappling technique, but is actually quite effective. So we'll try and flesh out some of those for you. So moving on to the little practical demonstrations we mentioned in the key points section. We've now gone open hand rather than close fist. So we'll have a quick look at some of the striking surfaces that are available with open hand techniques rather than close fist. So we'll be using Simon as my crash test dummy. So Naihanchi kata, Heishu, back of the hand. So powerful strike along the jawline into the neck. I think whether it's just a black country term or whether it's a common term, but you obviously get threatened with a backhander. Well, Heishu is that very backhander. Another open hand technique, Taisho, using the palm of the hand. Strikes into the nose, strikes into the chin. The classic karate chop, Shuto, with the muscle part of the lower hand, striking into the collarbones. Specific Kyokushin technique to strike into the collarbones and rip down. A similar strike, Seiryu, which is striking with the pisiform bone, and again hitting into the neck or the jaw. And the other classic, Haito, the opposite side of the hand, where we can strike in onto the jawline to the jaw. So these are the more advanced striking techniques that you can use using open hand. Even if I could borrow Simon again, Nukete, you know, maybe not into the body, but certainly into the eyes or into the throat. So that becomes a viable weapon if you're striking into the eyes, into the throat area. So more advanced, but we're starting to see that in this kata. So from the second key point of one technique, 1,000 applications, we'll look at the start of Yondan and try it in 3 different styles of technique. A striking technique, a jiu-jitsu wrist lock type technique, and finally a grappling tagumi type technique. So you can see how it can be adapted to various situations. So the first technique, classic striking, as we said before, that the kata doesn't necessarily say where the attacker is coming from, it's where you need to be in relation to the attacker. So as the technique comes in, this is the angle I need to be to meet him. So we've got the technique to cover, to block. And then we've got a Taisho strike to the nose. So that would be like a classic interpretation of the use of that technique. So this can be a wrist lock type technique. So as the attack comes in, we meet it, take the elbow. We now have a wrist lock. So it's gone from being a pure striking technique to a wrist lock technique. In the Sandan video, we covered this idea of Tagumi, the grappling side of martial arts and karate. In that instance, if we're in this position and I want to break this grapple, we used from Sandan. For Yondan, we can do something very similar. So if we're in a grappling position, I can use this hand and this hand to break. So you can see that these are techniques that can be used in different ways. So it's not necessarily just striking techniques. You can use it for breaking grappling, you can use it for wrist locks. So just a little mind exercise where you can take some of these techniques. So the third key point is this idea of doji-ni, 2 together. The earlier katas were very much block punch. But you know, if you come up against a boxer who's used to throwing jabs and hooks and multiple punches, block punch might not be enough. So doji-ni is this idea of blocking and striking, or evading and striking simultaneously. So back to the demonstration we did earlier, as the technique comes in, boom. We're not trying to block and then punch, the 2 are happening together. So it's not giving him chance to get a second technique off. Another section in the kata is as the punch comes in, we get this. But there's nothing to stop you turning it into block and strike at the same time. So as the punch comes in, boom. So he's not getting chance to perform a second technique. So this is, I think, the first time I can recall in the katas so far where we've seen this idea of doji ni, two together. And again, this is more experience. You're past 1, 2. You should be able to string combinations and techniques together by now. And I think this is like the start of that process. So the final key point was looking at this from a more grappling come jiu-jitsu point of view. So some of the techniques can be adapted into wrist locks and submissions. So we'll take a little look at that, and again we're sticking pretty much to the kata, but there's a concept that Kenwa Mabuni came up with, that you take chunks of the kata and apply them as needed. So for example, in the first little section we'll show you, as we demonstrated before, but then we'll use a variation on this part of the kata. So there is a difference in where they are in the kata, but they can be applied as you need them. It doesn't have to be done exactly in the order of the kata. So we'll demonstrate that one now. So as the technique comes in, we meet it, bring it over, but we can now take control of the elbow and bring him up into a Sankyo Aikido type technique, where we can control him and move him around as we want to. So we've gone from here, this section of the kata, to a later section. By just adapting the technique slightly, we've got a practical technique from it. So if we do it once more, over, bring him up, turn him round. So looking at another section of the kata from what's usually described as a juji-uki, we can also turn that into a wrist lock come submission hold. So if we go again, we meet the technique, bring it over to control him, but now we can pull this in and apply a wrist lock. Push forward and strike. So we've just performed that section of the kata, but now in a slightly different view. Rather than it being a kick, we're trying to juji-uki, we can apply a wrist lock. Push him forward to control him, strike him on the head. So if we do that once more. Come up, push forwards, strike. Out he goes. So hopefully you can view the kata a little bit differently now and try and get a little bit more from it than just basic blocking and punching.
Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed what we've done. Again, if you don't agree with it, you don't have to use it, but there's lots of things there to go away and practice. Quite a fluid kata, as katas should be. So, yeah, we've enjoyed doing it. Keep up the support on the YouTube, so try and give us the thumbs up. If you want, put the thumbs down, but, you know. But, yeah, and we've quite enjoyed some of the comments that you've been putting on there and, you know, on Facebook as well. It's given us an opportunity to answer a few questions that you've had in your mind. So, yeah, keep up the communication. That's what this is all about. Okay, so thank you very much indeed. Ash.